The salvage ship Starbound Wanderer drifted through the empty darkness at the edge of known space. Captain Zixtal watched the scanner readings with his 4 eyes, each one focused on different parts of the display. His blue-scaled hands moved across the controls as he searched for anything valuable floating in the void. "Captain, I'm getting something strange on long-range sensors," called out Engineer Vormak from his station. The beetle-like alien's shell clicked as he leaned forward. "There's a large object about 2 light hours ahead. It's not moving." Zixtal turned his serpentine neck toward the engineer. "What kind of object? Asteroid? Debris field?" "No, sir. It's too regular. Too shaped. I think it's a ship." The captain's interest grew. Derelict ships meant salvage, and salvage meant profit. His crew of 6 aliens had been searching this sector for 3 months with little to show for it. A good find could pay for their next year of operations. Set course for the object. Full scan as we approach. The Starbound Wanderer changed direction, its engines humming quietly. The ship was built for salvage work, with large cargo holds and powerful sensors. It wasn't fast or armed, but it could haul almost anything they might find. As they got closer, the object became clearer on their screens. It was definitely a ship, but unlike anything in their databases. The hull was dark, almost black, and covered in strange markings. It looked like it had been through a war. "By the 7 moons," whispered Navigator Thixon, her insect-like wings buzzing with excitement. "Look at the size of that thing." The derelict ship was massive, easily 3 times longer than their own vessel. Its design was alien to them, not the smooth curves of Keltharian ships or the sharp angles of hegemony vessels. This ship looked functional, brutal, and built for purposes they couldn't guess. "Are there any life signs?" Zixtal asked. Vormak's claws clicked on his controls. "Scanning now, Captain. The hull is made of materials I don't recognize. Very dense. Very strong. I'm having trouble getting readings through it." They moved closer, and the ship's details became visible. The hull was scarred and burned in many places. Whatever had happened to this vessel, it had seen serious combat. Strange symbols were etched into the metal, and weapon ports of unknown design dotted its surface. "Captain," said Communications Officer Blixtar, his tentacles waving nervously, "I'm not detecting any active systems, no power readings, no engine signatures, but—" He paused, checking his instruments again. "There are very faint life signs. Something alive is on that ship." The salvage crew exchanged looks. Finding survivors changed everything. Galactic law required them to provide aid, but survivors also meant the ship wasn't abandoned. They couldn't just claim it as salvage. "How faint are we talking?" Zixtal asked. "Barely there, sir. Like something in deep sleep or suspended animation." The captain made his decision. "We board the ship. Standard salvage protocols, but be ready for anything. If there are survivors, we help them. If not, we claim what we can." They suited up in their environmental gear and took a small shuttle to the derelict ship. Finding an airlock took time. The ship's design was completely foreign to them. When they finally found what looked like a docking port, it took Vormak 20 minutes to figure out how to open it. The airlock cycled, and they stepped inside. Emergency lighting flickered on, surprising them all. The ship still had some power, even if their sensors couldn't detect it from outside. The corridors were strange. They were built for beings about the same height as most galactic species, but everything else felt different. The air was thick and rich with oxygen, more than most species could handle safely. The gravity was heavy, making each step an effort. "This atmosphere would be toxic to most of us without suits," Vormak noted, checking his readings. "High oxygen, nitrogen, traces of other gases, and this gravity, it's almost crushing." They moved deeper into the ship, following the corridor, toward what seemed to be the main section. The walls were covered in more of those strange symbols, and everything was built to last. This wasn't a luxury vessel or even a normal military ship. It was built for war. Serious war. "The construction is incredible," Vormak said as they walked. "These metals, they shouldn't exist. The density readings are impossible. This ship could ram through a space station and barely notice. They found what looked like a command center. The room was large and filled with stations they didn't recognize. Everything was dark. But when Thixon accidentally touched one of the surfaces, lights began to glow. "Careful," warned Zixtal. "We don't know what any of this does." Blixtar found what might have been a communication station. "Captain, I think I can access their data systems. The ship seems to be responding to our presence." "Do it, but carefully." The communications officer worked with the alien controls, his tentacles dancing over surfaces that seemed to respond to touch. Slowly, information began to appear on screens around the room. "I'm getting something," he said excitedly. "Language files, navigation data, ship records. The translation matrix is working on it now." Symbols on the screens began to change, shifting into words they could read. The first thing that appeared made them all step back in surprise. Ship designation, UES Nightfall. Class, Deep Strike Vessel. Origin, Sol 3, Terra System. "Sol 3? Thixon whispered. "I've never heard of that system." More information appeared. Mission logs, crew records, technical specifications. As they read, their understanding of what they had found began to change. "These beings call themselves humans," Blixtar reported. "They're from a planet they call Earth. According to this, they were fighting something called Devourers, a species that ate entire star systems." Vormak was studying the technical data. "Captain, these weapon specifications can't be right. According to this, their main cannon could destroy a moon. Their shields are rated to withstand the explosion of a star." "That's impossible," Zixtal said, but his voice carried doubt. They continued reading. The logs told a story of desperate warfare against an enemy that consumed worlds. These humans had fought a war unlike anything the galactic community had ever seen. Their planet, their entire system had been sacrificed to stop something that threatened all life in the galaxy. "Look at this," Thixon called out, pointing to a display showing the ship's current status. "Life support is active in the medical section. The life signs Blixtar detected, they're coming from there." They made their way through the ship toward the medical bay. The corridors seemed to go on forever, and every section they passed showed the same impossible construction. This ship had been built by a species that understood war in ways the galactic community never had to. When they reached the medical bay, they found their answer. 5 cylindrical chambers lined one wall, each one glowing with soft blue light. Through the transparent surfaces, they could see the sleeping forms of the ship's crew. They looked almost familiar, bipedal, with features that weren't too different from some galactic species. But even asleep, there was something about them that seemed dangerous. These weren't beings who had evolved in the safety of civilized space. "Humans," Zixtal said quietly, staring at the sleeping figures. "From a world they called Earth." As if responding to their presence, one of the chambers began to hum with activity. Status lights changed from blue to amber, and they could hear systems activating throughout the ship. The discovery had just become much more complicated. The chamber's hum grew louder and warning lights flashed throughout the medical bay. Captain Zixtal stepped back as frost began melting from the transparent surface. Inside, the sleeping figure stirred slightly. "Should we stop this?" asked Thixon nervously, her wings buzzing faster. "Too late now," Vormak replied, watching his readings. "The ship's automated systems have taken over. Whatever we touched has started a full revival sequence." Steam hissed from vents around the chamber as the temperature slowly rose. The other 4 chambers began activating as well, their blue lights shifting to amber. Throughout the ship, they could hear systems coming online: power generators, air, recyclers, and other machinery they couldn't identify. The first chamber opened with a soft click. The figure inside coughed and took a deep, shuddering breath. Slowly, the human sat up, blinking in the bright lights. He was tall by galactic standards, with short brown hair and pale skin marked by old scars. His muscles moved under his skin in ways that showed incredible strength, even though he had just awakened from what must have been years of sleep. When he opened his eyes, they were a bright blue color that none of the aliens had seen before. The human looked around the room, taking in the alien faces watching him. His expression was calm, but there was something dangerous in the way he held himself, like a predator deciding whether the creatures in front of him were threats or prey. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice rough from sleep. The ship's translation system converted his words instantly. "You're on your ship," Zixtal answered carefully. "We're salvagers. We found you drifting in space. My name is Captain Zixtal." The human studied each of them with those strange blue eyes. "How long?" "We don't know," Blixtar said. "Your ship's logs are damaged. Could be years, could be decades." The other chambers finished their cycles. 4 more humans emerged, another male and 3 females. They all had that same dangerous quality, like weapons wrapped in flesh. Even the smallest female moved with a grace that spoke of deadly training. The first human helped the others as they recovered from their long sleep. He seemed to be their leader, giving quiet orders and checking on each person's condition. The aliens watched nervously as the humans gathered near the medical stations. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison," the leader finally said, turning back to the aliens. "This is Lisa Carter, our pilot, Tony Rodriguez, weapons specialist, Amy Walsh, our medic, and Rick Daniels, engineer." Each human nodded as they were introduced. Even fresh from sleep, they looked alert and ready for trouble. Their eyes constantly moved, checking exits and studying the aliens' equipment. "What ship are you from?" Lisa asked. She was shorter than Jake, with red hair and green eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "The Starbound Wanderer," Zixtal replied. "We're salvagers from the Keltharian Trade Federation." The humans exchanged glances that the aliens couldn't read. "Never heard of it," Tony said. He was the biggest of the group, with dark skin and arms covered in tattoos that looked like military markings. "What year is it by galactic standard?" When Zixtal told them, Jake's face went pale. "Over 200 years, he whispered. "We've been asleep for over 200 years. Amy was checking readings on the medical equipment. She was blonde and looked younger than the others, but her movements showed the same deadly competence. "The stasis systems held perfectly. We're all in good health." "Where are we?" Rick asked. He seemed quieter than the others, with brown hair and curious eyes that studied the alien technology with interest. "About 40 light-years from the galactic rim," Thixon answered. "In what we call the empty zone. There's nothing out here but dead space." Jake nodded slowly. "That's where we were supposed to be. Far from everything, far from everyone." "Why?" Zixtal asked. "What were you running from?" The humans looked at each other again. Finally, Jake spoke. "We weren't running. We were waiting to see if Earth's sacrifice worked." "Earth?" Formac asked. "Your homeworld. What happened to it?" Lisa's hands clenched into fists. "We used it as bait, drew the entire Devourer fleet into our system, then detonated our sun. Took out everything. Our world, their ships, billions of our people." The aliens stared in shock. The casual way she spoke of destroying an entire star system, including their own planet, was beyond their understanding. "You destroyed your own sun?" Blixtar asked in horror. "It was the only way," Tony said grimly. "The Devourers had eaten 12 systems before they reached us. They consumed entire planets, turned all life into fuel for their ships. Earth Command calculated that they had enough ships to overrun the entire galaxy within 50 years. Amy continued the story. "So we made a choice. Use Earth as the ultimate trap. Let them think they were winning, draw their entire fleet close, then activate the solar destabilization device. But some of us were sent away first," Rick added. "Deep space vessels with skeleton crews carrying our most advanced weapons. Our job was to sleep until the threat was over, then wake up and see what was left of the galaxy." Jake walked to one of the ship's displays and activated it with practiced ease. Star charts appeared showing their current location and the surrounding space. "According to your nav data, we're exactly where we're supposed to be. The question is, did it work? Are the Devourers gone?" "We've never heard of any Devourers," Zixtal said. "The galaxy has been at peace for centuries. There are wars, but Nothing like what you're describing. The humans relaxed slightly at this news, but their eyes remained alert. Tell us about this galactic community, Lisa said. How many species? What kind of technology? Any major threats? As the aliens described their civilization, the humans asked questions that made them uncomfortable. They wanted to know about weapons, military capabilities, and defensive strategies. Not like conquerors planning an invasion, but like soldiers evaluating potential threats. Your ships, Tony asked Vormak. What kind of weapons do they carry? Standard, plasma cannons, some missile systems, the engineer replied. Nothing too powerful. Most conflicts are settled through negotiation. Tony and Rick exchanged looks that might have been amusement. And your strongest military force? The Hegemony Alliance has the largest fleet. Maybe 3,000 combat vessels across all their systems. This time all the humans shared that look. 3,000 ships, Jake said slowly. And you consider that a large fleet? It is, Zixtal insisted. No one has resources for larger forces. Amy was studying readings from her medical scanner pointed at the aliens. Interesting, she said quietly to the others. Their bone density is about 60% of baseline human. Muscle mass is lower too. Makes sense, Rick replied just as quietly. Look at this gravity reading. We're at about 1.3 Earth standard. They're struggling just to stand upright. The aliens couldn't hear this conversation, but they noticed the humans moving with easy grace in gravity that was exhausting them even in their environmental suits. Jake made a decision. Captain Zixtal, we need to know more about this galaxy we've woken up in. Can you take us to one of your space stations or colonies? We need to see what kind of civilization we're dealing with. Of course, Zixtal replied, though something in the human's tone made him nervous. There's a trading post about 6 hours away. We can escort you there. No need for an escort, Lisa said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The Nightfall can follow your ship. We should probably test our systems anyway after such a long sleep. As the aliens prepared to leave, they heard the ship's engines starting up. The sound was unlike anything they'd ever heard, not the gentle hum of their own drives, but a deep roar that seemed to shake space itself. When they reached their shuttle, Vormak checked his readings and went very still. Captain, he said quietly, that ship, its power output just went from 0 to something my instruments can't measure. And those aren't normal engines, they're doing something to space around the ship. They looked back at the UES Nightfall as their shuttle pulled away. The human ship no longer looked like a derelict. Running lights glowed along its hull, and strange energy patterns danced around its engines. What have we awakened? Thixon whispered. Behind them, 5 humans stood on their bridge, looking out at a galaxy they had died to save. A galaxy that had no idea what kind of guardians had just returned from their long sleep. The journey to the trading post took 6 hours, but it felt longer to Captain Zixtal. Behind them, the human ship UES Nightfall followed silently. Its engines produced no visible trail, yet their sensors showed it was somehow bending space around itself to maintain speed. Captain, Blixtar called out from his station. I'm picking up a transmission. It's not directed at us. What kind of transmission? Military frequency. Hegemony codes. The communications officer's tentacles moved nervously. They're demanding identification from all vessels in this sector. Zixtal felt his scales prickle, with worry. The Hegemony Alliance was known for taking what they wanted when they wanted it. If they had detected the human ship, they would want to claim it. Are they talking to the humans? I don't think so. The Nightfall isn't responding to any standard frequencies. 20 minutes later, their worst fears came true. 12 Hegemony warships dropped out of hyperspace directly in front of them. The lead vessel was a massive battle cruiser, bristling with weapons and armor plating. All vessels, this is Admiral Kret Hull of the Hegemony Second Fleet, came the transmission. You will stop your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with destruction. Zixtal's crew looked at him with fear in their eyes. Hegemony boarding meant slavery for some species, death for others. They had no weapons that could challenge even one warship, let alone 12. Should we comply? Asked Thixon. Before Zixtal could answer, another voice came over their communications. It was Jake Morrison from the human ship. Captain Zixtal, are these the people you were telling us about? The ones with the largest fleet in the galaxy? Yes, Zixtal replied weakly. We should surrender. They'll destroy us if we resist. There was silence for a moment. Then Lisa Carter's voice joined the conversation, speaking to her fellow humans. Jake, should we show them what a Deathworld species can do? I think it's time, Jake replied calmly. Captain Zixtal, came Tony Rodriguez's voice. You might want to move your ship away from us, maybe get behind that asteroid field over there. What are you planning? Zixtal asked, but he was already ordering his pilot to change course. The hegemony admiral was growing impatient. His ships moved into attack formation, weapons powering up. Final warning, surrender or be destroyed. That's when the UES Nightfall answered. The human ship had been dark except for running lights. Now it began to glow. Energy patterns raced along its hull like lightning, and the space around it started to bend in ways that hurt to look at. What are they doing? Formack whispered, staring at his sensor readings. The power levels. They're impossible. My instruments can't measure them. On the Hegemony flagship, Admiral Kret Hull was seeing the same readings. The unknown vessel was producing more energy than his entire fleet combined. All ships, open fire, destroy that ship now. 12 warships fired at once. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and missile swarms filled space with deadly light. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The weapons struck the Nightfall and simply disappeared. Not deflected, not absorbed. They just stopped existing when they touched the ship's shields. Impossible, Admiral Kret Hull breathed. What kind of shields are those? Tony Rodriguez answered him directly, his voice coming through on all frequencies. Shields designed to survive the explosion of a star, Admiral. Your weapons aren't even a warm breeze to us. The human ship began to move. Not like a normal vessel, but like it was stepping through space itself. One moment it was behind the Hegemony fleet. The next it was directly in front of the flagship. How did they do that? Thixon gasped. Rick Daniels explained, his voice calm and educational. Gravity manipulation drive. We don't push through space, we fold it. Pretty basic technology. Once you figure out how to contain a black hole in your engine room, the Nightfall's main weapon began to charge. A section of the ship's front opened like a flower, revealing something that made the alien sensors scream warnings. Admiral Kret Hull, Jake Morrison said politely. You have 10 seconds to order your ships to stand down. After that, I'm going to demonstrate why humanity had to fight beings that could eat entire solar systems. You're bluffing, the Admiral snarled. No single ship can face an entire fleet. 5 seconds, Jake continued counting. The Admiral's pride wouldn't let him back down. All ships concentrate fire on that vessel. Destroy it. Time's up, Jake said sadly. The Nightfall fired. What came out wasn't a beam or a projectile. It was something far worse. Space itself seemed to tear open and reality bent around the target. The Hegemony flagship didn't explode. It simply came apart at the molecular level, dissolving into its basic atoms in less than a second. The other 11 ships stopped firing and tried to run. Lisa, don't let them escape, Tony said casually. We don't want word of this getting out before we're ready. On it, the pilot replied. The Nightfall moved again, appearing next to each fleeing ship in turn. It didn't use its main weapon again. Instead, smaller guns emerged from its hull. Each shot was perfectly placed, destroying engines and weapons but leaving the crew sections intact. In under 3 minutes, 11 Hegemony warships were floating helplessly in space, their crews alive but completely defenseless. This is impossible, Admiral Kret Hull broadcast from his escape pod. No species has technology like this. What are you? Amy Walsh answered him, her voice gentle but terrifying. We're humans, Admiral. We come from a world where everything tried to kill us every single day. Our weather could level cities. Our animals hunted in packs and used tools. Even our plants were poisonous. We had to become the deadliest species on our planet just to survive childhood, Rick added. Then we met something even worse than our world, the Devourers. So we learned to be even deadlier. Jake's voice returned to the communication channel. Admiral, you and your crews will be released unharmed, but you're going to deliver a message to your hegemony leaders. Tell them that humanity has awakened and we don't approve of bullies. The human ship moved next to each disabled vessel, using some kind of tractor beam technology to push them toward the nearest hegemony system. The crews would survive, but their pride and their ships were broken. Captain Zixtal, Jake called, out. You can come back now. The demonstration is over. The starbound wanderer slowly approached the human ship. The crew was silent, trying to process what they had just witnessed. An entire battle fleet, the kind of force that could conquer. Systems had been destroyed or disabled by a single ship in less than 10 minutes. That was a light skirmish by our standards, Rick Daniels said conversationally. During the Devourer War, we considered it a quiet day if we only faced 100 enemy ships. Vormak checked his readings again. The Nightfall showed no damage, no power drain, nothing to indicate it had just fought a battle. How is this possible? He whispered. Evolution, Amy explained. When you come from a death world, you learn to adapt or die. We adapted by becoming very, very good at war. Tony's voice carried a hint of sadness. We didn't want to be weapons, but our world made us into them, and then the universe gave us enemies that required us to be the best weapons possible. The question now, Jake said seriously, is what we do next. We've been asleep for 2 centuries, and we wake up to find a galaxy that doesn't know how to defend itself. That makes us responsible for protecting it. Lisa's voice was thoughtful. Just like old times. Humanity as the shield between civilization and the dark. As they continued toward the trading post, the aliens aboard the starbound wanderer tried to understand what they had witnessed. They had found what they thought was a derelict ship. Instead, they had awakened guardians whose very existence would change everything about their peaceful galaxy. Behind them, the UES Nightfall followed, silently, its crew already planning how to protect a civilization that had no idea how much danger it had been in before they arrived. News of the hegemony fleet's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light. Within hours, every major power knew that something impossible had happened. A single unknown ship had destroyed Admiral Krethol's flagship and disabled 11 warships, without taking any damage. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from dozens of species gathered on the neutral station of Haven Prime, their voices filled with fear and confusion. No one had technology that advanced. No one should have been able to do what the survivors described. Captain Zixtal found himself at the center of it all. His testimony was broadcast to every civilized world, telling the story of finding the human ship and witnessing their power. The salvage captain who had been looking for scrap metal was now the most important being in the galaxy. They call themselves humans, he told the assembled representatives. They come from a world called Earth, which they destroyed to stop something called the Devourers. They've been asleep for over 200 years. Chancellor Vextol of the Galactic Council leaned forward. The elderly Altarians' 3 heads all focused on Zixtal. And you're certain about their capabilities? One ship destroyed an entire hegemony. Fleet? I watched it happen, Zixtal replied. It wasn't even difficult for them. They treated it like swatting insects. On the UES Nightfall, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge watching the long-range communications traffic. Every species in the galaxy was talking about them, trying to understand what they were and what they wanted. They're scared, Lisa observed, reading the intercepted messages. Half of them think we're invaders. The other half want to surrender before we attack them. Amy was reviewing the medical data she had gathered from their encounter with the aliens. I can understand their fear. Our bone density is 3 times theirs. Our muscle mass is designed for twice their gravity. To them, we must look like living weapons. Because that's what we are, Tony said grimly. He was cleaning one of the ship's smaller weapons, even though it had barely been used. Earth made us into weapons just to survive. The Devourer War made us into something worse. Rick looked up from his engineering station. Jake, we've got a problem. I'm detecting other signatures out there. Old ones, human ones. The bridge went quiet. Jake moved to Rick's station and studied the readings. How many? At least 6 signatures, maybe more. They're deep in space, just like we were. Other ships from the evacuation fleet. Jake closed his eyes for a moment. During Earth's final days, dozens of ships had been sent into the void. Each carried a small crew and humanity's most dangerous weapons. The plan was for them to sleep until the threat was over, then return to help rebuild. We need to wake them up, he decided, and we need to do it carefully. Some of those ships carry weapons that make the Nightfall look harmless. Meanwhile, on Haven Prime, the Galactic Council was trying to decide how to respond to humanity's presence. Some wanted to attack before the humans could threaten them. Others wanted to negotiate. Most were simply paralyzed by fear. We should contact them, suggested Ambassador Kyle Hun of the Peaceful Worlds Alliance. They helped the salvagers. They could have destroyed the hegemony crews but chose to spare them. Perhaps they're not hostile. They destroyed a flagship with a single shot, countered General Mordak of the military coalition. No species should have that kind of power. They're too dangerous to let live. Chancellor Vextel raised a hand for silence. Before we make any decisions, we should hear from them directly. Captain Zixtal, can you arrange a meeting? 3 days later, representatives from every major galactic power gathered in the council chambers. Security was heavy, though everyone knew it would be useless against human technology. The meeting was being broadcast live across the galaxy. Jake Morrison entered alone, wearing a simple blue uniform with strange markings on the shoulders. He moved with easy grace in the station's gravity, while most of the alien delegates looked uncomfortable in their heavy-duty suits. Honored representatives, Jake began, his words translated instantly into dozens of languages. I am Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. I come to speak for humanity. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. I know you're afraid of us. You have every right to be. We come from a world that would kill most of you in minutes. We fought wars that you can't imagine. We possess weapons that could turn your worlds to dust. The chamber was completely silent. But we didn't come here to conquer you, Jake continued. We came here because we had nowhere else to go. Earth is gone. Our people are gone. We're the last survivors of a species that chose to die rather than let evil consume the galaxy. Ambassador. Kylan found her voice. What do you want from us? Nothing, Jake replied simply. We want nothing from you except to be left alone to grieve for our lost world. But we will not allow others to prey on the weak. General Mordak stood up angrily. You have no right to dictate to us. This is our galaxy. Jake's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes made the general sit back down. This was our galaxy too, General. We died to protect it. Every human child who never got to grow up, every family that chose to stay on Earth knowing they would die, every ship that fought the Devourers until their reactors melted, they all died for this galaxy. Amy's voice came through the communication system from the Nightfall. Medical analysis of galactic species is complete, Jake. Want to share the findings? Jake nodded. Our doctor has been studying your biological data. Do you want to know what she found? He activated a holographic display that showed comparative anatomy charts. The average galactic species has evolved in low-gravity, peaceful environments. Your bones are hollow compared to ours. Your muscles are designed for cooperation, not combat. Even your most aggressive species would be considered gentle by Earth standards. The display showed Earth's environment, crushing gravity, violent storms, predators with intelligence and tools. This is what we lived with every day. Our children played in conditions that would kill your adults. We called it home. We're not trying to scare you, Lisa's voice added. We're trying to help you understand. We became what we are because we had to, and now we're all that's left. Chancellor Vextel spoke carefully. What are your intentions toward our civilizations? We will protect you, Jake said firmly. The hegemony won't be bullying smaller species anymore. Pirates will find their ships turned to scrap. Anyone who threatens peaceful worlds will answer to us. And if we don't want your protection? General, Mordak demanded. Jake's smile was sad. Then you'll get it anyway. It's what we do. It's what we've always done. We stand between the darkness and the light, whether the light wants us there or not. Rick's voice came through the communicator. Jake, we've made contact with the UES Retribution. Captain Helen Brooks is awake and requesting orders. A chill went through the chamber. The delegates had just learned to fear one human ship. Now, there were more. How many ships? Jake asked. 7 confirmed so far. The Retribution, Vengeance, Thunder, Eclipse, Harbinger, Titan, and Wrath. All deep strike vessels, all carrying full loadouts. Jake looked around the chamber one more time. Representatives, you now know the truth. Humanity has returned from the grave. We're not conquerors or invaders, we're guardians. Whether you like it or not, this galaxy is under our protection now. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. The Nightfall isn't our most dangerous ship. It's one of our smaller ones. The Titan carries weapons designed to crack planets. The Harbinger can destroy entire fleets without slowing down. As Jake left the chamber, the galaxy's leaders sat in stunned silence. They had thought they understood power. They had thought they knew what war meant. They had been wrong about everything. In the depths of space, ancient human ships began to wake up, their crews returning from dreams of a dead world to find a galaxy that needed them more than it would ever know.